we would not be where we are today without you.
Had you not been in my life, I wouldn't have known what to do at all.
You don't realize like how much you helped us.
And is the reason that we have our baby girl today.
And is open, honest, and shoots it straight.
So eternally grateful for everything that she has done for us.
So thank you, Anne, for everything that you do for women who are trying to have kids, who are having kids. Thank you so very much for everything that you do.
I'm Ann Matthews, a fertility acupuncturist and fellow of the Acupuncture and TCM Board of Reproductive Medicine. I wanted to make reproductive research and fertility medicine more accessible so that everyone can get their positive. Because whether you believe it or not, you're more fertile than you think. Hello. We're back. 4th episode. We're really crushing it now. We've got some, momentum? We're pulling out of the station, speeding along onto our 4th story, which just so happens to be about one of the most delightful people who is always teaching me something, the lovely Shira. After an easy first pregnancy, makeup artist, founder, and influencer, Shira Ben never thought that she would be forced to go through every form of fertility challenge in order to have another baby. Having to appear as though she had it all together on the outside, her own internal world felt as though it was falling apart. Shira tells us about her story of secondary infertility and how she conceived her miracle rainbow baby. This is her story. Shira.
Hey.
Thank you for coming.
Thanks for having me.
I'm sorry for startling you with the...
Where am I supposed to look?
The
Just
cameras?
At the hostess? Okay.
Sure. This is...
Yeah, this is a very casual setup.
Yeah, he's got you caught in here.
A lot.
When I first did my podcast with Annie and Ren, and I met Ryan that fateful day, I had no idea what he was doing because he had hidden the cameras.
No.
Yes. Right? They were not in my face. Were they in my face? I just didn't see them. Anyway.
No. You just felt so comfortable.
I did. I was so comfortable and enthralled with my oat latte until it made me violently ill.
It'll
the
sneaks up
story
on
for
you.
another day. But thank you so much for coming.
Thank you so much for having me.
I'm sorry that I am not Brad Pitt and that I tricked you into coming here.
I thought I was having lunch with Brad Pitt today, but next best thing.
Oh, wow. Thank you. Thank you so much. But what we're going to delve into, I sort of alluded to this a little bit, is we're going to talk about your story, your fertility story specifically, about having your second daughter, because I feel like we've had a lot of primary infertility stories, but we don't have a lot of secondary infertility stories. And you're a very fun and carefree woman. So you'll add
easy breezy, baby,
some flair to our otherwise hard topic.
Yeah, very hard topic. Secondary infertility for sure caught me off guard. Never in a million years. It wasn't even on my radar, fertility. Didn't know anything about the world of infertility. I knew women had miscarriages, but I had no idea that it could become such a journey and the world of infertility and what I was about to embark on when trying to have my second child.
Yeah.
So yeah, it totally took me off guard. My first pregnancy, conceiving my first daughter was so easy. It was the classic, oopsie, I'm pregnant story.
Right.
So when it came time to have a second child, when I decided I wanted a second child, the fact that I was so completely unaware of what was to come, how hard it was going to be emotionally, physically, all the things.
Did you do the sort of trying to space out your children a certain amount of time
in
between, or you just decided at what point that you wanted to try for a second?
Because the first was kind of an oopsie. My husband and I weren't even married at the time. We had talked about one day having kids. I felt very taken off guard when I found out I was pregnant. So by the time I decided I wanted a second, she was already 3.5.
Right.
So there wasn't any particular plan. I just wanted to feel more settled in life in general. And, I just felt the time was right. When she was around 3.5, I felt it was a good time. We're going to have another baby and give my daughter a sibling. I definitely didn't expect it to take 4 years.
Yes.
So my second daughter ended up being born when she was 7.5 years old.
Right.
Yeah. So from around 3, my first being 3 to her being 7.5 years old. That's how long it ended up taking. Yeah.
Yeah. So when you started trying for your second, did you time ovulation? Or did you just jump right in thinking it was going to be exactly like the first?
I'm embarrassed to say this, but when I tell you I knew nothing.
You knew nothing.
I knew nothing. I just knew I got pregnant with my first. And I didn't even know there was an ovulation period. I didn't even know what ovulation was.
You just were having random sex at random times and hoping for the best.
Yeah. And I'm pretty sure that 90% of my friend group was in the same boat, because when I did start with my fertility journey and I tried to explain to them about the ovulation and the tracking and the full-time job I had monitoring my cycle, they couldn't believe it.
Right.
So I think it's a whole world that is so far from so many women. You just think you get your period and the rest of the time is a free-for-all.
Yeah.
That's really how I thought it worked. And I like to think of myself as a smart, educated woman. I had just never been taught about anything other than you are pregnant or you're not pregnant, or you got to have safe sex if you don't want to get pregnant.
Yeah. Because if you have unsafe sex, you will immediately become pregnant.
Immediately.
The next day even.
Yeah.
I once had a patient who genuinely, I'm not kidding.
I mean, I'm laughing now.
She had sex and then the next day went and bought a pregnancy test.
Okay.
And was very upset
that it was negative.
That it was negative.
So I probably would have
done the same.
Been maybe not the next day, but
she pranked me. I
4
thought.
days.
Not so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that was how it all came to be.
When did things get more serious?
So things became really serious when my daughter was around 3.5. I can't remember exactly. Okay, hubby time. I want another baby. He was all for it. He was happy to have a sibling for our daughter, and he also had no idea. So we thought, okay, we're going to try. And so let's say it was November, 6 months later, I got a positive.
Right.
So again, I don't have no idea if we were trying at the right time of the month, the wrong time of the month, but 6 months later, something worked and I was pregnant. So this was around April, May, I'm pregnant, super excited, and I'm having a baby. In my mind, I'm pregnant, I'm having a baby. There's really not a whole lot that can go wrong.
That's the only end game.
That's the end game.
Right.
That's what I thought. And again, I wasn't naive to the fact that women could have miscarriages, but given the fact that I didn't have a miscarriage prior, everything was smooth sailing, I just assumed, whoa, we're having a baby, yay. Telling my daughter she's having a sibling, telling my friends and family. I remember I started spotting and feeling terrible cramps. And so I went to the doctor. They did an HCG, which came back positive. Who knows if it was a good number or a bad number, but they could, according to the blood test, I was pregnant. So they just chalked it up to it being early pregnancy. This happens, hormones, you're fine.
No ultrasound.
No, nothing. It's too early for an ultrasound, they said.
Okay.
A couple weeks later, I'm still experiencing every symptom under the sun. Pain, spotting, really, really so uncomfortable, sweating. I was irritable. I've actually never felt more sick in my life. But again, everyone's telling me you're pregnant, so it's probably morning sickness or just regular pregnancy symptoms. So again, I'm going to the doctor. I went to my GP, my OB, telling them something is really wrong. There's no way this is normal. They ran another HCG, came back slightly lower.
So there was a drop.
There was
in
a
your
drop.
HCG.
But it still showed that I was pregnant. At this time, I think I did go for an ultrasound and they couldn't detect anything
In your uterus?
in my uterus or otherwise.
Right.
So they just sent me home and said, you know what, it could just be that it's so early on in the pregnancy that we can't really see anything in your uterus, but let's come back maybe in a couple weeks and see how it goes. And I remember calling my OB and crying on the phone, like, please help me. Like, I know something's wrong. In hindsight, so classic ectopic, what I was experiencing, that I'm not sure why she dragged it out and why it got to the point that it did. Anyways, May goes along, June, I'm freaking out, sick as a dog. July rolls around. I'm still experiencing all of this, but now it's obviously getting worse.
Right.
And they were going to schedule me in for another ultrasound, but it never got to that point because in the middle of the night, one night, I'm sitting at home and I passed out from pain. My husband happened to be away that weekend. Poor guy never leaves the house.
Oh my God.
And I was trying so hard to just get through because I thought, okay, if I take some Tylenol, if I crawl to the kitchen and get some Tylenol, I'm sure, you know how it is when you're a woman, you just push through any sort of pain because you're told like,
I'll
it's
be all
normal.
right.
I'll wait till the morning because I had a 3-year-old upstairs in bed.
Yes.
But there was no way. I remember calling my sister-in-law who lived close by and I said, sorry, but you have to come over. Like, I have to get to the hospital. And she said that I was mumbling and stumbling because in my mind, I thought I was talking, but it was such severe pain, I couldn't even talk. She ran over and got taken to the hospital.
Right.
And immediately they triaged me and got me into a room. There was no waiting. I think my vitals were so terrible. I didn't even have to wait for 2 minutes in the waiting room. They got me into a room, ultrasounds, whatnot. I had a ruptured tube. So it was an ectopic pregnancy, but they had left me with this ectopic for now going on 3 months. And
That is insane.
it's insane. And I was literally begging my doctor and my OB to please help me. Like, there was something, and I'm such a
It's
vibrant, energetic person.
And it's one thing if you had just some spotting, because I've had patients who have ectopics and they have spotting, continuous spotting. But you had severe pain.
Severe pain. Childbirth
For
was
weeks.
nothing compared to this pain for weeks, going on months, really, if you think
Right.
about it. So there was no choice but to remove my right tube, remove the pregnancy. And it was just so heartbreaking because in one breath they're saying, oh, you're pregnant, but, and I didn't even know what an ectopic was. I'd heard about one. My grandmother had one years and years ago. I think someone mentioned it. So that's what happened there.
What happened to your grandmother?
With her ectopic?
Yes.
No, I don't know.
Did she have surgery?
Don't know.
We should find out.
We should. Well, she's passed away, but I can ask my mom. Maybe might know.
Yeah, I'm curious.
So it was a bit of a disaster. I was so shocked by everything, and
Yeah, it took you by surprise.
took me by surprise. But
You're pregnant and then in 1 second and the next you're having surgery.
yeah, pregnant, happy, excited, in pain, freaking out, being told I'm being overly dramatic and go home, and to the next minute a ruptured tube, surgery, no pregnancy, no down a tube, like all the things.
Yeah.
And so the OB was kind of, oh well, it happens, and we can't always tell that it's going to be ectopic, even though it was such a textbook case. Dr. Google could tell me it was an ectopic if I knew what to Google at the time. I had no idea.
Yeah.
But my GP was a little bit more sympathetic, and he said, you know what, let's immediately get you into a fertility clinic and
Put you on a new path. So you
Put
went
you on
from
a new
being like
path.
a hyper fertile person to someone who's now at a fertility clinic.
yeah, but I was relieved because I didn't know what being down a tube entailed. I was upset. I was excited to have another baby. I wanted this to be as quick, swift as possible. So I thought a fertility clinic was going to be the answer to my problems. I thought, okay, they're just going to tell me to do X, Y, Z. We'll have a baby by next year. Great, let's go.
Yeah.
So we go to the fertility clinic, and my husband and I did the initial welcome pack of blood tests and
I was like, this doesn't sound like
semen
anywhere I've been.
samples because, that's super sexy.
Yes.
And yeah, so we did the blood work, the samples,
The ultrasounds
the internal ultrasounds.
with Wanda.
Wanda, got introduced to Wanda. It's great. Yeah, so we do all that. Then we have our initial meeting with the doctor, who sits us down and looks at my husband. You're great. You're fine. Looks at me. You're kind of old.
Which is wild because your husband is older than you.
Yeah, he's 16 years older than me. And at the time, I think I was 33, 34.
A babe.
Yeah, a tiny spring chicken.
Yes.
But even though I was like, okay, yeah, I am getting older. I was
Yeah,
like,
you
okay,
didn't-
this is a little much. Like,
Right.
come on.
Yeah.
Like, I saw the ladies in your waiting room. There are people here that are more mature than I am. Like, why are we pushing this on me? So,
Which is so funny. I had a patient tell me the other day that when she was in the waiting room, there were what she thought were teenagers waiting.
oh, and because maybe they had one rough cycle and the doctor told them the only way for it is a fertility clinic.
Yes.
Yeah. And nothing would surprise me.
Right.
Unfortunately.
Yeah.
So this guy's telling me I'm old and it's my age, and the only way possible I will ever have another child is if I immediately do IVF. So coming from I'm fertile, I don't know anything about the world of infertility, having an ectopic to being told IVF, I knew nothing, zero, zilch about IVF
Right.
was the biggest shock of my life.
Yes.
I panicked and I said, no thanks. Like, there has to be something in between to try out first, maybe before we start, injecting. I start injecting myself and getting
you get,
retrievals.
Like lay of the land as to what IVF looked like?
No, there's such minimal information. The only thing that really sticks out at me and throughout this whole thing is the language they use towards me. There was no explaining. It was kind of, you're a failure. I know we've discussed this a lot
Yes.
before. Is it love language? Yeah. Our words of affirmation. So this really stuck. You're a failure. You're not able to hold a pregnancy. You're old. You're never going to have this. I really internalized that a lot. It took a huge toll on me, to be honest. And I just didn't think I was capable of doing anything.
Right.
So I didn't get the lay of the land because I just felt like this mumbling failure. I didn't feel like I could even ask or advocate for myself at this point because, oh my God, you're a woman who can't even have a baby. Like, ew, you're the dregs of society.
Right.
That's how I felt. And my husband's being praised for having an amazing sperm count and motility and all this at the tender age of 50. Just unreal. Talk about,
Yeah.
I being a
that's
man's world.
That's honestly so. I know that we have spoken about it before, about how the failure label really stuck with you. And it's so wild to me knowing you because I can't picture you as anything but such a success.
Well, thank you. And I'm not even joking when I say maybe if the doctor would have said, you know what, you are still young and we know you've got a child. We have proof that you are fertile.
Yes.
So you're young, you're fertile, you've just had one little oopsie, not ideal. You had the ectopic, but your chances are so great. I wonder if my outcomes would have been different. I think my body and my mind shut down from day one.
Research would indicate that you're right in this assumption, in that a patient's belief in not only themselves, but also that their practitioner believes in them, increases their chances of success.
Yes. And which is why I think we had such great success.
Yes.
The minute I walked in here, you were like, you're a fertile goddess.
Just like that.
We are.
I draped you in these plants and away we went.
You baptized me in the back.
That's right. That's what was involved. Spread the word. Yeah.
Way more pleasant than Wanda and the other tests.
Yes.
Anyways, I said no thanks, no to IVF. There's got to be a middle ground here. Please let me dip my toe in the water before we jump into the deep end, because I was overwhelmed, anxious, feeling like a failure. So he said, reluctantly, we can do IUIs with letrozole. So this gives you hyper ovulation, I guess.
Right. Super ovulation.
Super ovulation. The letrozole will help you drop those eggs like it's hot, because I don't have a tube on the right now. We have to ovulate on the left for my chances.
Yes.
For any success. Okay, great. Let's do it. IUI round 1. So we're talking artificial insemination. Another sexy one.
So sexy.
So sexy. More semen samples were collected.
Honestly, I feel like I would prefer that. I honestly...
Actually, once we got into the whole world of infertility, I'm
like, this is great.
Oh, I'm a Virgo, I'm not into physical touch that much. So this is actually quite a nice...
a little break.
Yeah. It's a great break.
Sufficient.
It's science-backed.
Like it's minimal showering after the fact.
Yeah, like everyone's happy.
Yeah. Never have I ever sounded more OCD.
What is wrong with us?
Showering after the fact.
I was like, okay.
Ryan's, this is what women are thinking about. Not all, actually. Probably a small percentage, but you just are so lucky that you get to be with us now. Ryan's a Pisces, so he's like...
The lover boy?
He's a lover, aren't you?
Oh.
Yeah?
Wow. he's like, I'm not being interviewed, so please.
He's going to cut this out for sure.
All right. Well, do the IUI. IUI number 1, failure. You're a failure. Didn't take. Husband's sperm was amazing and you failed and you're old.
Just a little.
Yeah, it's like,
nudge.
We can try again next month. Of course, desperate, Virgo, overthinking, overanalyzing.
Yeah.
Huge failure. I was like, yes, we're going to do this next month. I'll take more letrozole if need be. This will be great. This is my time to shine. I'm not going to let anyone else down. We're having this baby.
Wow.
So, of course.
In crazy head switch from being, I'm like watching the trajectory.
Yes. But I think anyone going through fertility feels that you're not allowed to sit in your trauma when you're going through the journey. You just have to keep on going, keep on pushing.
Right.
Because you do not want to be a failure. You don't want to be sad. You don't want to dwell on it. You just got to keep on going, because aren't you here to have a baby? And they actually used to say that to me at the clinic. Well, the outcome is a baby. Like, just get with the program, Yeah, you had a failed IUI and an ectopic and you're devastated, but we're not here for your feelings.
Right.
So we do round 2, doesn't work. Round 3, doesn't work. Comes to round 4, and my doctor was away on holiday the day that I was ovulating. So how it works is they monitor your cycle.
Yes.
And the day they think you're going to ovulate, you have to come into the clinic so they can get the sperm in there so it can meet the egg.
Yes.
Very precise
situation.
And you're in the clinic a lot. Again, something I had no idea I was going to be spending 2 weeks out of every month in the clinic so they could check every day to see when these eggs are dropping. My doctor was going to be out of town the day that I was ovulating, so his partner had to fill in to do the insemination. And she comes into the room and she looks at me like she just saw a ghost. And she's like, okay, so what exactly are you doing here? And I said, I'm here for my sperm. I'm here for my insemination.
My basting.
The turkey basting.
Yes.
And she's like, well, you're ovulating on your right side and you don't have a tube there. So there's no point in doing this today. I was devastated. I'd been at the clinic every morning. My doctor's telling me, oh, the egg's looking great. Your follicles or whatever looking good. A little bit of positive. You got to cling on to all the positive. Did he...
But on the wrong side.
Fail to notice or mention that it was a complete dud of a cycle because it's on the wrong side. No chance in hell am I getting pregnant this cycle. The partner in the clinic, the doctor who's filling in on this particular day, goes on to look at my file and she's like, oh, and the last time you came in for an IUI was on the wrong side too. What is going on here? So she's calling out her partner in the clinic.
Yes.
I'm
quite the opposite of the research we just mentioned about feeling confident in your position.
I was the devastation because of the money, time, physical, emotional toll this process had taken on me, all down the drain. Literally, this doctor hadn't even had the decency to look over my file and make sure that I was ovulating on the correct side when we were doing this.
Or anyone else.
Nobody caught it. And we're not talking once, we're talking twice at this point.
Right.
So she's like, listen, we're not doing this today. So sorry, but we'll try again next month. Needless to say, he was like, look, we've done 4 rounds of IUI, nothing taking. We have to do.
Is that including the 2 that were on the wrong sides?
No. So one of them was on the wrong side. So 2 right side, 1 wrong side. And then with her, we did 1 on the right side. Didn't take. She's now telling me IVF or bust. The IUIs just are not going to work. But let's do a biopsy of your lining, your uterine lining, to make sure that everything's hunky-dory. And I came back that I had something called chronic endometritis.
Yes.
So
inflammation
of my
your lining.
Yeah.
Caused by bacteria.
And this is potentially the reason why I'm not having the implantation.
Yes.
She put me on a course of very strong antibiotics. There were 2 different antibiotics at the same time for 10 days to clear things up. She believes things were cleared up. They didn't do a follow-up test. They just said that 90% of the time it clears up with the antibiotics. Okay, great. Let's move on to the retrieval.
Right.
They did, of course, preface it by saying, you're a poor responder because the letrozole wasn't so great and I might not get the amount of eggs that I want. And out of my cycle, I might get 1 embryo because I am a poor responder because I'm a failure and blah, blah, blah. But I was like, well, we got to give it a shot.
Yes.
We did this cycle. It was pretty straightforward. Didn't love the needles, but who does? And we ended up, my kink. I loved them so much.
I had someone today tell me that she loved needles.
Really?
I know. 10 years in acupuncture. Yeah.
We did the retrieval and we ended up getting 6 eggs. All of them fertilized. That's the word.
Yeah.
Little hazy on my lingo.
That's okay.
All of them fertilized and we ended up with 6 embryos. 6
That's amazing.
out of 6. So I wasn't such a failure. Actually, the clinic called and they were impressed.
You're an anomaly.
5-day, pretty gorgeous
Beautiful.
embryos.
Blasts.
Blast, 5-day blasts. Yes, you're right.
Wow.
And this has nothing to do with me though, Anne. This is all because of my husband's super sperm. Don't you
Indeed.
know? Like,
We'll be selling it.
yes. Oh, they actually, they did mention something about using it for research. So his ego was just
my God.
out of like
It's out
control.
of control.
He's just like strutting around like a peacock while I'm shaking, quivering, traumatized woman in the corner. Unreal, actually. Needless to say, we got the 6 embryos. We were so happy. And I just thought, okay, this has to be it. Like, it has to be it.
Did they send them for testing?
We decided against the testing.
Okay.
Not entirely sure why, but at the time, it just felt like
The right choice.
the
for
right
you.
choice.
Fair.
We go, we do, what's it called again? The process where they put it back in you?
Oh, the transfer.
The transfer.
Yes.
We do transfer number 1, and I did sign up for every single add-on known to man, the glue, the HCG, just load them up. We're getting pregnant. Unfortunately, it failed. Wasn't being a great partner to my husband because everything was just hard and bleak, and there was no end at this horrible tunnel for me.
Yeah.
So I
and it
decided to take a
changed
break.
your like sense of self, it feels like.
Oh, 100%. I was half the person I was going into it. On top of it, we had a pandemic to deal with. So in terms of career stuff, I
Yeah.
was also thrown for a loop. Just a hard time. Hard, horrible, not nice. Just want to have a baby, please. And so I decided to take a break, and you won't believe what happens. I got pregnant. This random pregnancy, natural pregnancy, very timed, meticulously timed though,
Yes.
pregnancy. I was over the moon. I couldn't believe it. After everything I'd been through, this was it. I'm having my baby. It's exactly what we needed at the time. Pandemic, struggle. I'm pregnant. We're having a baby. First ultrasound, beautiful. Second ultrasound, beautiful. Third ultrasound, no heartbeat. Yeah, terrible.
Yeah.
I didn't have to have a DNC. Luckily, things just naturally did their thing. Silver lining, I guess. But yeah, I was devastated. Totally could not get my head. I couldn't wrap my head around it. Yeah. So for anyone going through this, it's just, as I said to you before, Anne, it's so easy for some to have 10 kids back to back. And then there's just such a struggle for others. Have
And
my
different types of struggles. You had to deal with so many different types of fertility challenges. It wasn't just
And
one.
again, because it's unexplained, you're desperately trying to find the answer. And
The
I think that's
explanation, yeah.
the biggest hurdle for so many of us who are told it's unexplained. What do you mean it's unexplained?
I think a large part of that too is that the term unexplained is accepted. And I've had doctors defend it, saying, oh, well, it's not being a lazy doctor. It's some things as part of, the natural process of fertility, you can't explain it all. It's the only aspect of medicine where it's accepted to not be searching.
And I, in hindsight, feel like it's a loophole for them because they string you along and they string you along and they
certain clinics and there's certain clinicians who will look at a patient's charts, they'll do the additional testing, and they will try to find the problem before they give you the solution. And I think the problem right now in fertility, for the most part, is that there's so many people who would have so many different problems who are all getting the same solution.
Yes.
That doesn't work in anything.
And that is exactly towards the end, the argument I kept on having with my doctor. You're being reactive. There's nothing proactive happening with my fertility.
Yeah, your care.
Yeah. We're going to try this. And if it doesn't work, we'll test for that. No, let's test now.
Yes.
And if we find an issue, then we know. But why are we wasting these embryos? And why are we wasting my time, my energy, my mental health?
But also, if you're making embryos, if you are doing timed intercourse and you can tell that you're ovulating off of the left side, then you have to think about what's the disconnect here.
Right. Yeah. And the more I was in it, the more I was learning and trying to become my own detective.
Yeah, your own advocate.
Yeah, definitely my own advocate. Just exhausting, all around exhausting. So at this point, we're on our third transfer. Did the transfer again, all the bells and whistles. My lining looked great. This looked great. Everything's great. It didn't take, and I just couldn't anymore. And so that was when 3.5 years into this ordeal, decided I had to walk away because I needed to claim myself back. First of all, my hormones were so out of whack. I didn't know if I was coming or going.
Right.
Second of all, I wanted to be the best mom I could to the child I already had. And third of all, I wanted to live life. I wasn't living my life. I was living for this process. And that's when I decided to come to you.
Yeah, I was thrilled.
I decided to come to you. I don't really know if I was necessarily planning on getting pregnant through your treatments.
You came in and you said, I'm here to rebalance my hormones.
Yes, I wanted to feel like a woman
and
again.
I said, I don't do that without getting pregnant.
Yeah, you were like, well, within 3 months, you'll be pregnant. And I was like, okay.
You're like, I don't want that anymore.
Like this hippie, like this weird hippie lady.
Is that what you thought?
Initially,
I
was like, okay,
it's lunatic.
Calm down.
Yeah.
But you were like, yeah, sure, we can do that for your hormones. You'll feel great, but you'll be pregnant within 3 months. And I was like, okay, whatever. I will do whatever you tell me to do, which I think I did follow through pretty well.
You did.
So I started seeing you in May. And honestly, Anne, it was the most magical time of my life. I'm sorry, I'm getting emotional. But from being treated so badly and going through so much and trusting doctors, thinking I could trust doctors, to being treated like a lab rat and not trusting these people who I did hold at such a high regard before getting involved.
Yes.
Yeah. And seeing you was just such an amazing time of my life, really. You gave me so much back. I will be eternally grateful, Anne. I don't think you understand. Sorry.
Shira, I love you.
Not only did you give me my soulmate, my little baby, but I changed. I started seeing myself again as the person I was before the ectopic and everything collapsed around me. So thank you so much. But anyways, it was magical. My sessions were magical. You're magic. And it gave me hope. And actually, my first pregnancy craving, I didn't know I was pregnant. You'd done something weird on our last session together to my head. And you were like, just going to put a needle in your head. And I was like, what? And you're like, okay, done. I just wanted to check something. And I was like, okay, great. Maybe I'll be...
I'll take it.
Yeah, sure. And whatever you need to do.
For the acupuncturist, I did do 20.
Because when I used to finish my appointments here, I used to go to... Is the place called Kitchen down the street?
Yes, Impact Kitchen.
No, not Impact Kitchen. Pantry.
Pantry. Oh, okay, yes.
They have like salads and stuff. I always used to go to Pantry on my way home to grab myself dinner. And I remember that last session together with the needle in the head, I was literally like running down the street to pantry because I needed to get their coleslaw, which I'd never had before. Only ever seen it on the display. And I was like, I need the coleslaw. And I was like, am I pregnant? Like, is this a pregnancy craving? Like, why am I so desperate for coleslaw?
Yeah.
Anyhow.
It was
I
your
was like,
third month here.
yeah.
You should have known.
Yeah, I should have known. And I'm like eating coleslaw in the car. And I'm like, God, what is wrong with me? So weird to crave something you've never
Had before.
experienced before.
Just saw
Anyhow, I go home, think nothing of it. Because every month I was hopeful I was going to be pregnant, right?
Yes.
And yeah, I don't know at what point we decided I should take a test. Or, of course, I just had a million tests on hand, as you do.
Yeah.
And so I did the little OPK test that I had at home.
Yeah.
Lo and behold, 3 months to the day, boom, magic, pregnant. And yeah, and that's the story. So my pregnancy was not without its challenges.
Yes.
More psychologically, mentally.
I was going to say.
Nice pregnancy, actually. Quite a pleasant pregnancy if you hadn't been through infertility for 4 years.
Or had such a traumatic experience with having spotting.
Right. So I did have spotting because I had the subchorionic
hematoma.
Yeah.
And I was having you have a copious amount of fish oil.
So much fish oil.
A lot. Yes.
To keep my blood
thin.
So with the I mean, of course, when you can't just have a regular pregnancy without spotting. You have to have spotting. You have to have hematoma.
You needed some drama.
We needed the drama.
Yes.
We got the drama. The hematoma cleared up at around the second trimester. It was not a thing anymore. It was totally gone. I'd graduated the fertility clinic.
Yes.
They were my care providers for the first trimester, even though it was a spontaneous pregnancy, not through them. They still were the ones monitoring me. Graduated after 12 weeks. Baby was flying. I did my NIP test. Genetics came back great. We found out we were having a little girl, so our second girl. And at 39 weeks, I went in for an induction because I do have a fibroid that's quite large.
Fiona,
my fibroid, had to get in the way.
What a cutie.
Yeah, so I opted for the induction because they didn't want the baby to get too big and not be able to push her way through.
Yes.
Past Fiona.
Yes.
And you know what? It was great. I went in, got my Pitocin. 12 hours later, they said push for 10 minutes and had this cute little bundle of joy.
I know. And then I got a picture.
You got a picture?
It was a great May day.
Yeah. Crazy.
Came in May, had a baby in May.
So I came in May, had my baby in May, and I did. Her second name is May because we needed to give a little tribute to Anne, but I thought it would be weird if I called her Anne Matthews Jr.,
No one has done that yet, strangely.
I was wondering how many AccuBabies have your namesake. But also my sister-in-law's name is Anne, and she kept on saying, well, if you name her after me, it's not going to be fair. The other people in the family. And I'm like, yeah, well, nothing to do with you. But anyhow, so we have little Jessie May, and she is the most magical, determined. It makes sense now when I am with her. Okay, she's almost 2, if you can believe it. She'll be 2 this May.
That's actually crazy.
It's crazy. It's insane.
It feels really not that long ago.
No, I feel like I literally had her last week because I'm still exhausted.
Yes.
Still trying to lose the baby weight.
You don't look like you just had a baby.
I know. I just had a baby last week.
I know. That would be quite the Jennifer Aniston transformation.
The glow up.
Yes.
Yeah, but it is. I'm sure anyone who has a rainbow baby will tell you that baby,
yes,
is so meant for you and so worth the wait. And her personality is everything. It makes so much sense because she's the most stubborn, determined, feisty child. Yeah. Even the daycare providers complain about how feisty she is.
Comment.
Because she wanted to be here so badly.
Yeah. And Fiona, the roommate.
And the Fionas and the Karens of the world. No pun intended. She wanted to be here. And she's magical. And the whole family is obsessed with her.
Yeah.
And I think another thing that's important to know that a lot of the times I would talk about my journey on my social media when I was going through it and through my pregnancy. And I feel like when I had Jessie, I stopped talking about it.
Right.
And it's not for any other reason, but when you are holding your baby, everything from the past kind of melts away.
I love that.
It really is the most unreal experience because I thought I would be carrying this trauma and I didn't want to carry trauma into her life. I didn't want her to start her life on this foot of, oh my gosh, my mom's neurotic and traumatized and paranoid about everything.
Right.
And I was actually scared I was genuinely scared that was going to happen.
Yes.
It has not been the case at all. If anything, I feel so relaxed and calm around her. And all of that experience, like the bad stuff, melted right away.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do remember when you were here at the end of your pregnancy that you were
A lunatic.
you were very anxious. And
I was so convinced
I
something
definitely-
terribly wrong was going to happen in the birth process because I just couldn't believe it. I was so used to the shoe dropping. Is that the saying?
yeah, waiting for the other shoe to drop. Yeah, that was right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Something to drop. Yeah, I was so convinced that I was waiting for the plot twist the whole
Yeah.
time.
Yeah, and as you got closer and closer to giving birth, you were realizing like I'm getting through this and I'm doing it well and I'm doing it without any further trauma. So
Yeah. And I really made a huge effort towards the end to change the script, flip the script, whatever the youngsters are saying, because I didn't think it was fair to bring this baby into a world of trauma.
right.
I wanted a fresh start.
Yeah.
And that's what I got. Yeah.
That is a very beautiful story.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you so much for telling it.
Sorry about the sobbing.
Honestly,
You can't take me anywhere.
that
and-
was the
but you are magical.
that was the most fulfilled
And-
I've felt as a practitioner potentially in my life. I didn't know what to do.
Good. This is how you should feel all the time because I speak on behalf of all the women. You are purely magic.
I'm going to go through in a subsequent episode essentially what we did and why, so that people don't think I'm actually just magically putting needles in people's heads and then having them run for coleslaw.
No, we had done a lot of work.
but I
and
will-
There was a lot of lead up. Oh my gosh.
But
I
I-
was doing the supplements, the moxa, the weekly appointments,
You were
all the things.
a
It was
machine.
you knew. You had a feeling that things were
Well, the thing
happening.
is, yeah, you were always fertile. We just had to clear up a few actually pretty rudimentary issues.
Unreal.
And then it wasn't complex. I was lucky that you were ovulating on the right side. So
Yeah.
left side.
I was lucky. Yeah. The left side was my
lefty.
my better side.
Yeah. But
Yeah.
Anyway, thank you so much. I really appreciate
Thank you,
it.
Anne. And thank you for all you do for our community. Like from the bottom of my heart, it's unreal. You're just one of a kind.